Hello, in this video I'm going to be going over setting up a basic TypeScript environment for scripting in Fivem, and then I'm going to make a basic resource to demonstrate. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a resource called test resource. I'm going to open this folder up in VS Code. I recommend using the TypeScript extension so you get IntelliSense within the browser. I'm going to create a terminal, and I'm going to create a fxmanifest.lua file. The first thing this is going to do is this will provide the FX server with some information about your resource. We'll fill this in later. Next thing we want to do is we're going to go into our terminal and npm init-y. This will create a new node project, which will make this package.json. This is going to have some more metadata about the project you don't really need. Most of this really, the most important things here is the scripts and the dependencies. So we'll add some dependencies. We'll use the npm I command with the d flag. This will save them as dev dependencies. The first one we'll want is citizen fx/client. This package will contain all the type annotations for the natives, as well as functions like on-net for sending events, things like that, anything in the citizen interface as well. We'll also want Typescript. We'll want types node, and we'll want build. These are the 4 packages we'll need. We'll be using esbuild as our bundler. So to start off with that, we'll need a prod.build.js, and we'll make the client folder, and we'll have client.ts, and we'll have a tsconfig.json. The tsconfig basically copy in this tsconfig. It's quite simple. It just gives instruction to the TypeScript compiler on how to handle things. So we'll be using ECMAScript 2020. This is the version of JavaScript we'll be targeting. We'll use strict mode true, which will basically make the compiler shout at you, or have type checking strict. And I recommend leaving this on so you don't get into any bad habits. We'll also be specifying types, citizen, fx client, and types node. These will be our global types. These are quite important to have. So if I go into the client and I say create vehicle, this will have all of the JS docs and all of the arguments outlined here. So the thing we want in here is we want to, firstly we need the resolve function. This will come from path. Path is a built-in node function, and we'll say our build path is equal to resolve current directory, which is this underscore your name, and we'll say build. This will be a build folder. Then we'll build, which is actually going to be our build function. We'll require. This will come from the build package. The require function basically just imports packages from node, and then I can paste in my build function. So this will be a build and a client. This is our out directory. This is where the end result of will go. Entry point is this client.ts file. That basically means anything in here will get built. Anything outside of here must be imported into this client.ts, or it won't be included in the bundle. And we'll be targeting the browser because we're running on the client, and the client runs browser v8. We're going to be minifying and bundling, which basically includes all of our dependencies and minifies it to optimize the bundle. Basically removes all of the white space. And then we'll also create a dev.build.js. This is basically the same, except we have an additional watch equals true argument to our build, which basically means anytime we save this file, it will automatically be compiled for us. So then we can create these scripts. Build, get rid of this. So we can node our prod.build.js, and we'll have a watch command, which will node dev.build. If I can type correctly. So now if I put something in here like console.log hello, and I hit npm run build, so this will be in our build client, and that will be there. npm run watch. This will put us into watch mode, so any changes I make in here, so I change this to high, that will then change in there. Quite straightforward. Now what we'll do is I'll make a basic TypeScript resource just to demonstrate some things. So the first thing we'll want to have is we'll make our own delay function. So we'll call this delay. That will be an arrow function which takes time as a number as the first argument. This will return a new promise which has the resolve as its argument, and we'll have a set timeout, and that will run resolve after our time. It's basically equivalent to the wait in Lua. The next thing we're going to do is I'll say register a command. We'll call this create v, and this takes again a callback function as its first argument. And second argument is the restricted. I'll actually set this to false. This basically is our restricted argument. If this is set to true, you need an ace permission to run the command. This callback function has 3 arguments: source as a number, args as an array of strings, and raw command just as a string. To get the model, so if we do slash create vehicle adder, the first argument is model. So say model is equal to args 0, but because we're in TypeScript, we can actually simplify this with the destructuring syntax. So we say const model is equal to args. So our first argument in the array is equal to this args array. We'll also compute the hash with get hash key of the model to get the model hash. I will just do a simple check. If not is model in cd image, we will return. This will stop us from trying to spawn a vehicle that doesn't exist. Because what we want to do next is we're going to request the model. Not has model loaded, we'll await a delay of say 100 milliseconds. And now this errors out because our function is not asynchronous, so we add the async keyword. So what this request model will do is this will request the game engine to get this model out and to the client, and while it's not loaded, we just wait so that we don't try and spawn a vehicle before the vehicle is ready to be spawned. So what we'll do is we'll assign a vehicle handle to the create vehicle function, but first we're going to need coordinates to spawn it at. So we'll destructure xyz from get entity coords player ped id. This takes an additional argument in TypeScript. The live building, it doesn't really do anything, but it is a required argument. If it wasn't required, there'd be a question mark here, but it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't do anything, but we just have to have it here in TypeScript. And we'll also want to say h is equal to get entity heading, and that will just be again the player ped ID. Spell it right. And so now we can create vehicle with the model hash, the x, y, the z, the h, and we'll set the last 2 arguments to true and true. So these will be our is network and net mission entity. We'll just set this to true so it's replicated on all clients. It's quite simple. The other thing we want to do is while not does entity exist, we'll again just await a short delay. Basically stops us from doing anything with the vehicle handle until it's created, because it's not always created instantly on the client. So now, after we've waited, we can set ped into vehicle. Again, this will be a player ped ID as the target, and the vehicle that we're setting into at -1 is the seat index for the driver's seat. So what this will do is we'll create a vehicle, wait for it to exist, and then we'll spawn our player ped into that vehicle. The next thing we might want to do is we'll omit. This is basically trigger an event, so we'll add a chat suggestion so that we get auto completion on the command in the in-game chat window. So our command is /create v description and then spawn car, and in arguments this takes an array of objects where the argument name is model and the help is equal spawn code. But we haven't added anything in the FX manifest, so we need to do that quickly. Define the FX version as Cerulean and the game as GTA 5, and there will be a client script at build/client/client.js. Refresh. It's refreshed that one resource, and we can ensure this resource, and we do /create v. See our chat suggestion is there, and we can see spawn header. Doesn't work. Let's have a look. This will be why we haven't added as model loaded here. /create v header. There we go. Create our header. That's basics of